Anybody shows up today. Yeah, I had to put my hoodie back on, Steve. It got dark and the temperature sank really fast. So I think it's in the 50s out there right now. So I'm seeking refuge in the shop here. But I got
Um,
cats to keep me warm.
I'd say I feel bad for you, but I don't.
Yeah, hey, the honeybees were all in the shop today. I mean, it was terrible, man. It was terrible. It was awful. But I love the weather. I'm hoping it's like that tomorrow. I got some more stuff I want to try to get done outside. Uh, it's been a welcome change because coming from that, I know it wasn't anything like what they've got up north right now. How about that negative 100 wind chill? Ain't you glad you don't got that right now?
Yeah, no, that would not be fun. But see, the thing with wind chill is you got to be out in the wind for it. When the actual temperature gets down there, that's when it hurts a lot. But
Yeah.
hey, we got some people rolling in.
Yeah, I need to get well, you could do it, but I'll do it. The chat overlay up.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Ah, we missed a bunch of comments. See there? Not paying attention.
Yeah.
So you're petting
Yep,
cats.
yep, yep.
Hello, Jim. Hello, Mike. Jack. Elk Grove, California. All right, you got to get out, girl. Hello, Joseph. Almost hit 80 today. Wherever Mark's at. I think he's got to be close to me. Hello from Atlanta, Asheville. Need to get to the CNC. That's some of them CNC folks. Y'all always trying to talk me into getting a CNC. Shop cats rule. My feral cat hunter. Yeah, these used to be feral, but over the past 5 or 6 years, as you can see, they're feral only to other people. They're scared to death of everybody else, but they love us. First time watching, oily crafter. Well, we hope we don't bore you too bad. Steve, Steve and I both have some toys coming. When's yours supposed to be here, Steve? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow. It's already at the local UPS hub.
Yeah, mine is too, but my hub's not as close as yours. Mine's about 30 miles away.
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't.
it's literally about 3 blocks from where I work, so it's really tempting to tell UPS just to hold it, but it'll be here when I get home, I'm sure.
I was fixing to say, yeah. Just save it. So we're gonna like we'll have some projects that we can do some testing together. That's going to be cool because I don't think other than the X tool, the 10 watt, you've got the 10 watt standard also, don't you?
Right, the original one, yep.
So this will be the second laser that are identical. So that'd be cool. And this is a newer one. You want to tell them what we got coming there, Steve? Since they're asking.
Well, the rumor is we both have had confirmation of orders and shipping, and everybody's been asking so much about these machines. But the rumor is we both have the Acer 20 watt, or their P20, which is actually 24 watts, I think was what they state, should be arriving to our respective shops this week, as early as tomorrow. So we're both excited to get our hands on that one and check it out. Since there's been a lot of interest and questions about it, we'll be able to answer them a little more
Yeah,
thoroughly.
there's been a lot of people asking about it, and I've been wanting to try one out, and I had never heard anything from them, and then all of a sudden, there they are. I'm trying to find a link to their stuff, but it's ATEZR.
ATZER, I think.
Yeah, they've got a website's a little got me a little off kilter here. I'm trying to find the machine, but they're comparable to I guess most any other 20 watt, maybe even a little more power. Like Steve said, they're advertising these things to be 24 watts. Is this supposed to be a quad stacked 6, right? Isn't that what it is? Instead of a quad stacked 5? So, so that'll be nice. A 24 watt will definitely get some use here at the Kayak Shack for sure. Rubber band framing tool. That's the circle tool, right, Steve? You're up on your jargon.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's. Sorry. Where's the question? You guys ever use the rubber band framing tool? Yeah. So it will, instead of just doing a square around your extents, it will go as curved as it can in to include the extents. So it's not going to be an exact outline. So if you've got something that curves in and around, it's going to kind of make a shape like if you stretched a rubber band around the extents of the points. And so it can help be a little bit closer depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, since the last, I guess it's the last patch where the square frame doesn't work on tool lines anymore. I've started using that button as my frame, my tool square frame, because it apparently the square will not frame it, but the round or rubber band one will frame it. So I was using that. I actually used that a lot today on those clothes hangers that I did. I had the job I had to get done. Just got the extension rails. I missed part of that. Ordinary woodworker. What was he saying?
Just got the extension rails a couple days ago and I want to build an enclosure for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure which machine he's talking about. I missed the first half of that one. Oh, is that it? No. Just got a, Ollie says I just got a 20 watt with a rotary. I love my 20 watt now. I will say I use it a lot, but that's not the same. Hello, Aaron. Yeah, we're gonna have to get some folks to help get these comments, I guess. Ordinary woodworker. I don't know what kind of machine you said you had. I can't find your comment, but congrats on that. Good luck with putting those extensions on. Some folks tend to have a problem, but from what I've seen, they all work well. I think Steve's upgraded a couple of them to wide bodies, haven't you, Steve?
Just working on the Sculpt Fun one. That's it so far. See, Jeff is talking about having a hard time cutting cedar. Which flavor of cedar are you using, and what's your machine? Let's see here. So this is some Western red cedar, your aromatic cedar, and it's about a 1/4 inch thick. And this is on a 10 watt machine that I've been testing, and I've been running at 100% power, 400 millimeters a second, with air assist on in 3 passes. That's this side over here. If I can get it to focus. There we go. So it usually, actually, I find cedar engraves and cuts pretty well, but depending on your type of wood, if you got
I don't know.
Weird imperfections in it, obviously that'll affect it. But
yeah, cedar, I've never had any problems cutting cedar. Even like the 5.5 watt machines, a lot of times my go-to for those low-powered machines is cedar, because it cuts like butter, from my experience. If you're having a hard time cutting any thickness of wood, I would recommend first thing is check your focus, check your lens, make sure your lens isn't dirty, because up to a 1/4 inch, a 10 watt should just slice 1/4 inch cedar. Unless you got something somebody told you was cedar and it's not cedar, then that's a possibility, I guess.
It says cedar fence pocket, planed down to about 13 millimeters. So, okay, that's about 1/2 inch.
Yeah,
but that should be, that should be kiln dried stuff anyway. I was going to ask as well, is it, what type there,
yeah.
But depending on where you're putting your focus, if you can drop it closer to your material, get your sharp point of your focus more towards the middle of your material, that might help you if you're just not getting through it. Definitely making sure you got some good air assist on there as well. And if you're getting a lot of burning, I'd definitely try increasing your speed and adding some passes to it.
Yeah, see, there's some of my cedar with the 20 watt, but now with the 20 watt, it's a little different. I mean, this is like 2 passes. But yeah, cedar's generally really soft. So I would check, make sure your machine's running optimally. Somebody said they just watched the video on the hangers. Do I seal them after wiping them down with glass cleaner? No, they're already coated when I get them. So in essence, I'm having to burn through the coating that's already been put on them and going down in there really deep. And if you put any kind of spray, my experience is if I hit that thing with any kind of spray, I run the risk of it reacting with whatever's on them because I have no idea what's on there. If they use a water-based and I use oil or vice versa, then there could be a discoloration or some type of undesired effect. So I have found that it's best with something like that that is not going to be getting wet or anything set on it, just to burn it and let it go. If you want to paint fill them, you can, but that's, you got to mask them first. You could mask them, burn them, and then spray them, but I haven't had any problems with, especially stuff like clothes hangers and stuff like that. I don't really see the need in coating them. Let's see what else we got. You find anything else here?
Well, we got Jeff with a little more information on his cedar stuff. It looks like 100% at 4 millimeters a second air on, but kick the flame alarm.
Clean the flame sensor.
Turn off the flame sensor.
Yeah, clean it or turn it off. Yes, that would be my recommendation. Or I don't go below 6 millimeters a second. That's just my rule of thumb because I have not started any fires at 6 millimeters per second. But on a 10 watt, I mean, you're probably going to take maybe 6 passes for something that thick. But yeah, 6 millimeters a second is what I recommend. But clean that sensor, or either, like Steve said, you can turn it off.
Yeah, I think he's using the 20. So yeah, I would try to speed it up to get rid of the flaming as well. But the flame sensor on some of them, it's a good safety feature to have, unless it's overreacting. So if you're getting a lot of flame, it's probably doing you good because you don't want that. But if it's just occasionally flaring up but not constant, and it's triggering the pause your work or kill the work, I would probably try to disable it at that point, at least temporarily.
That's what I did with mine until I figured out that when I clean the lens, I need to put me a little bit of alcohol on a swab and clean that little black sensor in the back there. And I haven't had any problems, which I may not have turned it back on either. But yeah, Ordinary Woodworker says he has some lag issues. I don't know if it's maybe on his end or ours, but says he's got the Acer 20 and he just wide bodied it. So he's looking at 430 by 850. That's a big work area, no doubt. And that's one thing that I have noticed about the Acer that I like is it's out of the box. It's 430 by 430 is what they advertise it. So that's going to give me 30 millimeters extra that I don't have with the 20 watt X tool.
So here we got, just before this one gets hidden, currently making 15-inch square box with half-inch finger joints. The cut isn't lining up at the end. Could this be the machine needing cleaning and or realignment? When you say the cut isn't lining up at the end, is it trying to finish the object and it's leaving a gap instead of completing the box? If so, that's likely some sort of mechanical issue. It could be your belts are too loose or too tight, or it could be too dirty, and it's anything that makes those stepper motors miss a beat, or the belts miss a beat in the steps can cause misalignment issues.
Another thing too, depending on how it's. Go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say, it could be definitely, it could be both cleaning and or alignment, but generally it's going to be something that's causing those to miss a step or jump on the belt.
Yeah, the only other thing I could think of, depending on how he's got the file laid out, it could be a kerf offset issue if he's you know what I mean, if the file's not laid out properly, because over a period of 15 inches, I mean, I wouldn't think that would make a difference, but
I would.
My first
that's where I was
suspect
just. Yeah, that's just where it depends on if he's saying two parts aren't lining up, or if it's the part he's cutting out. If it's coming to the end of it and not, joining that cut, then I would think it'd be more mechanical. So.
Oh yeah. Well, if you want to know if your belts are slipping, do like a little thin pencil line box at kind of high speeds and run it for multiple passes. And if you got belts slipping, they'll show you. Because what
Hmm.
you'll wind up with is you'll wind up with like five little faint lines that don't quite line up. So that's if I ever suspect that I've got belt slippage, I'll do a square, a circle, and then a bigger square and a bigger circle. Set them for like 120 millimeters per second with enough power output to leave a mark, and set them for like 5 passes. And if you see that those things are stacking side by side and not on top of each other, then you definitely want to look at tensioning and get everything lined back up.
So this is a good one. There's always questions about light burn, and so I'm just going to cover this and hit a few. And I know it looks like Jack has also answered this, but by default, when you buy Lightburn, yes, it comes with 2 licenses that you can run on 2 separate computers. You can run them at the same time. If you ask nicely with an email, they will send you a third on your same license, which is very generous of them. So for most of the dialed lasers running the GRBL, you just need the $60 version, and that is to buy your initial license, and it gets you 1 year of support. There's a lot of confusion at that point. You don't need to continue support, and you can continue to use the software, but you won't get updates. At that point, you can pay it's a $30 annual fee to continue getting updates. And if you pay that before your license runs out, they actually add a couple extra months onto it as well. So it's definitely, if especially coming from the CNC world, where software tends to be $600-700 for VCarve Pro and others, it's definitely well worth the $60 that you get it for that. So hopefully that helps clear up some questions on that. And then you also get a full featured 1 month trial on it. So definitely take advantage of that, and you can play with that even without a laser. So
Yep. Michael's asking about CO2s, so I'll let you go to that. You're CO2 guru.
about the power settings, check for how you set the max. So are you asking about how you would set your maximum power per your tube?
Yeah, I think you're talking
Or
about the S value. The S value is what's defaults at 1,000. So if you want to limit it in light burn, I think maybe that's what he's asking.
so yeah, that's done through the with the machine settings option in Lightburn, I believe.
Yes.
And you can do that. Just know that then your settings will not be comparable with anyone else that has that machine unless they match your settings. It's a good thing to do for your own laser, to set it to no more than a maximum power that you've figured out is your maximum milliamp rating for your tube, which means you're never going to go over that 100% power. But then if someone else who hasn't changed that says, oh yeah, I run it at 50% at such a speed, it's not going to match what you have. So work out what works for you on your workflow, but then know that you might have to do some math comparing to others on that.
All right, I don't think you've got any experience on this next one there, Steve, but he's saying he'd like to put a 20-watt module on his D1 10-watt, and he said he sees the Comgrow has a 20-watt module for the D1. I can speak to that module. It is a 20-watt. It runs neck to neck to my X-Tool 20-watt. There are some differences, but if you're going from a standard 10-watt using the upgrade kit that X-Tool makes, the Comgrow kit is very comparable to it as far as there is an extra power cord. There is going to be a control box that's going to have to be mounted somewhere, but I'm running it on my Ortur LM3, but the module that Comgrow makes will work on a X-Tool D1. It'll work on their Comgrow Z1, and it also works on the Ortur LaserMaster 3. But now there's some adaptation you have to do with the brackets and mounting apparatus, and it also comes with some pigtails that enable the use of the different cords that are on the existing frames of the other machines. But I've had good luck with the one that I've got. I've had it for several months, and I've run it a lot. It is actually on my secondary machine that's in my second enclosure, and haven't had any issues out of it. Even running the high speeds that I run against Steve's recommendations on the Otura LM3, because it is a lot heavier than the 10-watt module, and there are some mechanics at play. I'm just hoping that before the extra weight is enough to cause an issue, I either put the machine back like it was and move the module to something else, or get another machine, one of the two. But you haven't used the the Comgrow, have you, Steve?
No, I have not gotten my hands on one. I've got the 10 watt, and then I do have the 20 watt module upgrade for my X-Tool
Yeah.
10 watt that has a separate power supply and such that's not integrated as a Pro. But yeah, no, I from what I've seen from yours and a couple of people, the Comgrow 20 watt is a decent upgrade. That'll save you some money. So I guess it depends on how much value you put on that cost savings over having something that's kind of an aftermarket upgrade. But it's been running great for Clack on a couple of different
Yeah,
machines.
I was fixing to say, I've ran it on the Z1 and I run it on the Otura. I haven't put it on an X-Tool yet because I use my 10-watt standard for my stove covers, and I really don't, I don't want to go messing with it, because that's every week I use that machine as it is, and it serves me well without an upgrade. So, here's another question about light burn. And math, and I'm terrible at math, so Steve, that's you.
This is what I messed with the button top and word. 380, 38%. Yeah, your math is right on there. So, I guess what I would do is, get to know your laser, do some tests, and especially in CO2, staying below that milliamp rating on your tube is the biggest thing. So, my only caveat there is if you like to compare your results to other people, which is fine and dandy, but even when people ask me for my settings, I always have the disclaimer of this works for me and mine, and you should do your own testing. Set it up for what works for you. So like on my 60 watt CO2, I know that about 82% power on my power supply is topping out at the 21 milliamps that tube wants to run at. So I just know that is my max. I have the milliamp meter on there, and it's a good thing to get used to watching that milliamp meter however you have it on your laser, because that's going to be another indicator of when your tube's starting to go bad, is when that same power settings that you've been running starts running that at a lower rating coming through the laser. So you can change it, and for a lot of people, to make it easy that you don't ever overburn it, I would recommend it, with just the one caveat is now your machine is set up different for comparing settings. That's all. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, Mark's saying that it happened on the third panel of the box. The ends missed by about a millimeter. The first two lined up fine.
So
That still doesn't say for sure what it could be, but just check on those things, Mark. Like I said, it's hard to say on just one, test. Try to find another one. If you see one, throw it up there, Steve.
got one there. What do we use to clean our machines? Oh, I should really have this handier. This is what I use for 90% of my cleaning. It's almost pure isopropyl alcohol. That's as far as the lenses, the mirrors, even the rails and other things. I'll run that on there. As far as the honeycomb bed, either this, LA's totally awesome spray-on stuff, or Simple Green works well to help remove that residue and such. You spray it on, let it soak, rinse it off, gently scrub it if you want to. If you want something more harsher, our oven cleaner's there too as well. I just like to do this because I can do it outside and just kind of generally just, rinse it off and such. But the other thing to be mindful of is when you're working with your lenses and or on your CO2, your mirrors and such, you want to try to use a lint-free cloth or lint-free Q-tips. That's not going to leave anything behind on there, because if you wipe it down and it leaves little fibers and such, those can get burned on and ruin things too. So nothing too fancy, but get yourself a big bottle of as pure alcohol as you can. Like I said, this is 99.9%, and that seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, well, around here, you can just go to Dollar General, guys. If any of y'all
Yeah.
from the South, y'all know how those things are. Just
Well,
isopropyl alcohol. Like I said, what's like Steve said, the purer the better. I would agree with him on that. The dry time on what Steve is using is going to be substantially quicker than the dry time on 91%. So always after you clean it, give it a little while in case you let any fluids get anywhere that they didn't need to be, and let that evaporate. That's always a good idea with any kind of electronics, whether it's computers, cell phones, whatever. For the outside of my machine and for like those hard to reach places, a lot of times y'all seen my glass cleaner. I'm a Windex glass cleaner kind of guy because anything that's made to clean glass is made to evaporate, not leave any kind of residue. So cleaning, just getting the grime and stuff off the exterior part of the machines, I usually just use simple, glass cleaner of some type. The oven cleaner, I literally went to Dollar General and picked this stuff up. This is the cheapest oven cleaner you can find. What I do is I'll take the honeycomb out, prop it up against the side of the building on a good warm day in the sun, spray it down, let it soak for a little while, hit it with some water. You can either use a little pump up sprayer or the water hose, pressure washer if you've got it, whatever, and just get it. I don't think you could ever get one back to silver. Mine still kind of stays like a yellow. I can't get it to shine without sanding it, but it cleans it well enough to keep down the flash fires and little micro explosions.
yeah, I use that. The only thing is, if I'm doing anything with like acrylic, I'll make sure I get the ammonia-free Windex to clean it, because that can do some weird things to the stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, to acrylic. Steve, do you want to take this one or do you want me to? Because from an IT standpoint, from somebody that maintains servers and computers, seeing what some of these people are doing to the back of their machines is really driving me nuts. So I'll let you start with it.
So I personally wouldn't, because anything that you're doing to restrict the airflow through there, now you're going to keep it cleaner, but you're going to restrict the airflow. And those, whatever they have for heat sinks or not, they're counting on a certain amount of airflow to keep the components cooled. And when you restrict that, you're risking actually overheating your equipment more so than you are saving getting the dust and debris on there. So my recommendations are to not do that, to try to improve your ventilation within your space so that it doesn't have as much opportunity to suck that in there. And then also make sure you're doing a good cleaning routine that includes that. I've dealt a lot with electronics, both at work and then, in my RC airplane hobby, and electronics getting hot it's a no-win situation. You let out the magic smoke, there's no putting it back in. So I don't recommend it. I would always take airflow over filtered air, barring being able to upgrade your airflow through that and filtering it. But my recommendation on that is try to improve your ventilation to get the smoke and debris away from the top of the module where it's going to be pulling it in.
Yes, I agree. And I knew we would, even though we hadn't talked about that. Cooling fans, those fans are not vacuum cleaner motors, guys, okay? They're only supposed to be pulling free air, okay? These are brushless motors. They're made to be really fast, really quiet. And if you start adding material that is having to pull that air through, one, like Steve said, you're going to drastically cut down the flow of air, because if you put any kind of mesh material on there, you're at least cutting the possible airflow in half, because that material is half holes and half some type of a filtration material. So it's putting undue stress on the fan. You're still going to cause airflow. I would rather have dirty heat sinks than heat sinks with not enough air going across them. And that's what and I keep seeing people putting all kinds of stuff on the back of their lasers. And I'm like Steve, find out why your machine's getting so dusty so fast. It's probably because you don't have enough airflow through the enclosure to keep that dust out of the environment that it's operating in. So fix that problem first before you start strapping masks to your laser or whatever. There's another one.
Do I use a light burn camera with my CO2? Not yet, Dave. I've ordered a couple, and I do want to play around with that. But here in the winter months up in Minnesota, I honestly, if I don't need to go out and run that machine in the shop, I mean, I try to routinely just to, they don't like to sit. CO2 tubes and machines don't like to sit unused, but it just costs more to be dumping that warmed air out of the shop to keep it. So I'm hoping this summer I got to swap out to a tube with an integrated red dot beam as well. I got a couple things I want to do on that. I'm going to try to add my auto air assist solenoid to it and such. So I'm hoping here, and I was just joking with Clack earlier today, I'm hoping we're through the worst of the cold snaps here in Minnesota. Not that it's warm by any regards of the photo he sent me outside in a t-shirt today. Thank you.
I had to rub it in.
Hopefully soon I'll get out there a little bit more and planning on looking at adding one to play around with. So.
Okay. This is another one of those questions, and it's funny that they asked this question tonight because Steve's on the verge of catching a cold. We were having that discussion earlier, but now he's in a whole different environment than I am. All I know, guys, is, and let me knock on something. I'm 47 years old, and I can honestly say I don't get sick very often. Since the great, I guess you could call it epidemic, began, I have dodged that bullet, and I take vitamins. I have taken vitamins since I was 25 years old. I take multivitamins and a few other choice vitamins to help with some of my arthritic joints that I have from years of weightlifting and running and doing tactical operator stuff. But stay busy, man. Stay busy and take plenty of vitamins. Get sunlight. I'm a firm believer in sunlight cures a lot. And I know Steve's suffering from sunlight, lack of sunlight here lately. But I do firmly believe, and I base this, and y'all can, here we go. I base this on the animal kingdom themselves. Any animal on this planet loves to lay out in the sun during the day and just absorb sunlight. And there's got to be a reason for it. So I think that human beings, just like every other animal, need sunlight to function. Other than maybe bats and things like that. But that's just my philosophy.
It's a little tougher up here, but that natural vitamin D does help a lot. Getting sunlight, getting fresh air, does do a lot. But as far as how do I try to stay healthy, I have the benefit of working a job where I do have my own office, and the staff that report to me, I have the ability to send them home if I think they're sick. So I try to get them away. But they also, they've enabled us to do more flexible remote work. So if I'm sick, I should stay home and not work. But we've had some situations where we, just to try to help keep people healthy, we say, hey, why don't you work from home for a couple of days, or, we'll spread out a little bit. But yeah, I'm a big advocate. In the summer, I do love going camping, getting outdoors, going hiking. I live just a couple houses down from one of the city trails that I can get out there, but it's a little tough in the winter when it's too cold. So I've been lacking that a little bit.
Yep. Somebody was asking about CO2 and cutting acrylic. If you're going to be cutting a lot of acrylic, you might as well go ahead and bite the bullet for CO2, in my opinion. And this is somebody that has lots of diodes of varying power outputs. They do not do well at acrylic. You can cut and engrave certain colors, but your palette is going to be limited if you try to use a diode. That's the reason the Monport has a home in my shop, is for acrylic. That's about all I ever use it for, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would agree. If acrylic is your game, getting a CO2 is going to be a lot easier. You're going to have more consistent settings across the color spectrum, whereas with these others, it's kind of hit or miss as to what speeds you need to run at. And they can be different for different colors. So the faster and smoother you can make that cut, the cleaner your edge is going to be as well. So I really do agree with that. If you're focusing on acrylic, CO2 is going to be your friend.
Well, Ollie Crafter, you're in luck. Let me, Steve, if you want to change the question, you can. Let me find the video. But Ollie, I actually have a video on cleaning the X-Tool D1 Pro. The Pro, the standard, there really isn't any difference other than a few sensors and things like that you've got to look for. But the Pro actually has more sensors than the standard. So if you go by that video there, that's what I do. And disclaimer, like Steve said, that is what I do. It works for me. We just told you what we use to do that. So, uh-oh, my comments just bugged out on me, Steve. I don't know why. I'm having to reload, so I'm going to possibly lose some. But yeah, go back and watch. You can go and watch that video. If you anything that you're looking for, if you'll go to mine and Steve's channel and just go to the content, there's a search box up top when you go to my videos. Keyword search those. I usually try to tag enough keywords in there to where if you're looking for cleaning a machine or assembling a machine or air assist or anything like that, you'll be able to find all the videos that I've done on the topic. And but yeah, the stuff that I use, the method, all that should be in there. I've also got some adjustment videos as far as adjusting the belts and stuff, as well as the assembly video, because in essence, the assembly video is the adjustment video, just a lot more parts. So.
And I dropped another question up there, or comment up there, but I'm also going to drop in our Facebook group. If you have questions or comments that you're not seeing in videos, that's a great place to go ask that. There's getting some more community questions going back and forth. And, if there's a really good topic, maybe one of us or both will jump on it for a video kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Michael, as far as diode modules comparable to entry-level CO2s, in raw output optical power, yes, we're starting to see them get into that 40-watt range, which, CO2s have been anywhere from 25 to 40 on the lower end of RF and CO2-based lasers. And yes, it is comparable, but you still have to take into effect the wavelength will affect different materials differently. So that's where you're still going to have an edge with an acrylic. And generally, it's not going to interact with clear or translucent acrylic material. The diode still needs an opaque material to actually interact with. So that's where I think you're going to still see the benefit with that. Now, if you're talking just about wood, a 40-watt diode for cutting quarter-inch plywood and hardwood and such is probably going to be a lot easier and simpler if you're just dealing with smaller projects. I think we're getting to that point. There's a lot less maintenance and setup of them, and they're a little more flexible in that you can generally move them around. So definitely something to consider.
Yeah, and anytime, guys, if you have me and Steve both, we love to produce content that has benefits and helps you guys. I know, trust me, I know we do a lot of reviews. We do a lot of testing of different equipment. That's the nature of the beast, of being able to receive some of these machines and test them out and help some of you guys that maybe want to buy one or looking at trying different machines. But in my opinion, and I think Steve shares this with me, the best videos that we enjoy making are those that we know you guys are going to have fun with and be able to use and save yourself some frustration. Because trust me, between, putting together, I don't know, I've put together 13 different machines. I don't know how many you've put together, but between putting all these machines together, you learn things that a lot of times I can draw from that and help you guys to fix problems and find problems. I think the last live, or maybe two back, we had a guy that we actually helped him fix his machine during the live, and that's what it's about. That's what these lives are for, and it's growing, and we're glad to see people coming on board and helping us. And we got a lot of very knowledgeable guys in the comment section over there that if we can't answer your question, a lot of times they know the answer because they're sitting down chatting it up with us week after week. So just remember that,
Yeah,
because folks like Jack in the Box and Norbert and a few other folks. I mean, they probably know as much or more than me and Steve do. So
yeah, and Mike, yeah, the price of your 40-watt diodes when you look at the base machine and adding to it, definitely you're starting to push the price of an entry level CO2. Now, granted, a lot of people will point to the K40s, the little Monport and Ohmtech desktop units. Yes, they are an entry level CO2 that's going to run you about $500, but it is a very small cut area. About this 8.5 by 12, somewhere in there, about a sheet of paper. And so, and the machine is still fairly large for all that. So when you're talking about entry level CO2s, I'm looking at like the 55 watt, where it's closer to something like a 15 by 22 ish inch range, 200 by 300 millimeter, give or take. That's where I would kind of consider something more comparable to your desktop diodes. And yeah, those are going to be running you that 15 to 2000 to get into it. So it's definitely, the diodes are starting to push into that price range. So you got to start looking at what are the other options. Your diode, you still have it in a smaller form factor, more portable. You don't have the mirrors to align. You don't have the water cooling to worry about. They're generally already in an enclosure that may or may not have decent pass through for larger items. So there are some restrictions to that, where I still think you have a lot of benefit to the diodes. But when you're getting at that price point, you're definitely getting into some area that you want to consider your options.
yeah, one thing not to forget though is with some of the bigger CO2s, and I know Steve can attest to this. If the bigger you go with the CO2, the more mandatory a chiller is going to be. So you need to work that into your pricing. Don't get sucked in by thinking that, oh, I can get this laser for $2,500, because you're going to need that chiller to go with it as well. I would be afraid to run one of the bigger CO2s without one.
Yeah, you're really going to limit your time and or risk damage to your tube through either overheating or contamination by not having a good cooling system on there. So
Yeah. All right, y'all keep them coming, guys. I got to go get a Tums. I got some. My wife has gave me heartburn with supper, so let me go get some Tums.
so I've looked at the I can't ever say that name, the Guike Cloud and Omtech Polar. Definitely good units. They're going after the Glowforge kind of machine there, where it is more kind of plug and play, but it is still kind of a smaller footprint as far as your cutting area, and you're paying for a lot of convenience. So this is where I would ask the question: do you like to tinker? Do you like to, have to do some adjustments in management of your own, versus you want something that's going to be more plug and play, drop and go? The nice thing with these is that they're not dependent on being connected to the cloud for software use. They're a little more open that way in what they're using, and they are, they're more like the Apple packaging and such. There's a little more polished machine from the look of it as well. But I do feel you're probably paying for some form over function in those machines as well. You can definitely get the same functionality out of a less expensive machine.
Yeah, one more thing to keep in mind with guys, this is something that I learned the hard way when I got into CO2s is with a diode machine, you drop the kickstand or you put the little piece of plastic under it, whatever you have to do, you lower the laser head, tighten it up, and you're focused, okay? Most of your cheaper CO2 lasers are not going to have a motorized bed, and therefore focusing is a bit of a challenge because you've either got to space the material up, or you've got to use those awkward scissor jacks, or you got to do like I'm going to have to do and build some type of automatic bed in order to get the same convenient, quick focusing out of a CO2 that you can get out of a diode. So that's a big killer for me on the CO2 that I have currently.
Yeah, I think you'd be a lot happier if you would have gotten up into the kind of the next level, where a lot of those things are addressed. You know, generally they have
Yeah.
at least a basic air assist. They've got some, whether it's mechanic. Mine came with a power. You know, I've just got buttons that lift and lower the bed, but some of them have like a hand crank. But they have that built into it, that adjustability of the bed and such. And just the working area. I think you'd enjoy one that has a little more typical working area. So
Oh yeah, I've been looking. I just don't have room for one right now. That's my big thing. And like I said, and I don't have any work that I can't do with my diodes, and that's I have a hard time dropping a bunch of money on something when I can sit here with my diodes, and all my machines have paid for themselves, and everything I make's profit. If I go buy a big fancy machine and set over here, now I'm under the gun. I've got overhead that I've got to pay back. So, you know, I just try to stay in the genre in which I can use my diodes to make money. Any jobs that I can't, then I just turn those away. So I want one. Don't get me wrong, I do, but I don't have anywhere to put it right now, and I can't justify it. I also want one of the CNCs there. Thank you, Steve, and all the rest of you guys that are always telling me I need a CNC. Hello, Resin. Yeah, you do need a little bit more airflow with the CO2s as well for air assist.
So, yeah, X-Tool teased that they're coming out with a new CO2 machine, and I would expect it to be along the lines of, your White Cloud, OMTech Polar type machine, but until they tease us with more, and now that things are back from the Chinese New Year, I imagine we'll start maybe seeing some more stuff from them with lives and such. Um, Guess we'll find out which direction they're looking at that and where they go. But knowing their track record of trying to make things a little more, they do put some thought into their form. They do put some thought into their design as far as not just being another off the shelf kind of thing. I would imagine it's going to be along those lines of a more polished consumer product, at least from the looks. We'll see how it ends up in function.
The M1 that they make, is it CO2 or is it diode? I've never had one. Do you know?
Uh,
The
they're
little cricket looking thing?
No, the M. They do have a CO2, which was their original laser.
I'm
I don't
wanting
know
to.
if they sell it
I was
anymore,
thinking that. I was thinking the M1 was. It looked kind of like a glow
but
forge.
no, I think the M1 was still more of a combined diode, but it also had the drop down cutting knife for.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I figure if
it's
they build a CO2, it'll probably favor that thing. Maybe bigger, but resemble that.
it's their laser box was their original one, and that was kind of like the knockoff Glowforge at the time. I believe they only sell refurbished ones of those, but the M1, I believe, is the diode laser with also the cutting blade for like doing vinyl and such.
Yeah, Jim says it was the X Tool laser box. I thought they had made a CO2 at one time, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that
The
was
they
actually
said,
their first laser came out with.
yeah. Mark says that the M1's a diode and a cricket combination. I knew it had the little cutter blade
Yeah,
in it. I didn't know what laser it used.
yeah, and that's nice, but it's still a small cutting area. Even crickets are, small cutting area. I've got a US cutter 24-inch vinyl cutter that a friend and I split. I think I'm into it for like, I think we bought it for like $300 with the base stuff. So if you're looking at doing vinyl, those machines are fairly inexpensive and they're easy to run. So I wouldn't worry about trying to muck around with it in your laser or getting a combo machine for it. I would just get a dedicated machine for that, and they're pretty cheap.
Michael's asking if you've seen the rambling or heard the ramblings of the Otura fiber laser. Didn't we talk about that last week? Didn't somebody bring that up?
I don't remember. We were talking about the rotaries a lot, but
I have saw where Otura's showing a little handheld, kind of like the one that Xtool just released, but I think they're claiming it's a fiber. But the videos that I've saw so far is not real thorough as far as how fast it is or work size capabilities and everything. But it was the Otura. It was something one. Let me search that right quick. I'll let you manage these comments.
Sure. Jump over this one. So yeah, a 55 watt CO2 compared to a 60 watt, I don't think you're going to see a very huge difference in them. And a lot of times in those ranges, you got to be careful with the tubes that the manufacturers are stating versus their power supplies and such. They're going to be fairly close in power. Obviously, you're going to have a little bit lower, about maybe less than 10% difference in that. I don't think it's going to be that great, but there can be a huge difference in quality of tubes and the actual output power they get from manufacturer to manufacturer. So that's going to probably have more effect on it than the 5 watt difference.
Okay, the machine I was thinking about is not a Notor fiber. It's the Atom Stack, the one that Atom Stacks came out with, the Atom Stack M4.
Yep.
It says it's a fiber. It's like $1,300, but it's a real small. Looks almost like that Laser Pecker 3, whichever the most recent one is. But yeah, but it says that it's a fiber, but I haven't tried one. Now, like I said, if they want me to try one out, I'd be more than willing. But I've got some stuff I could try it on. But Resin says that the M1 can't use light burn, and I do remember when I was looking at that thing, that was one of the complaints. Was everybody said that you had to use X-Tool's old software, which I'm sure they probably got it up to Creative Space now. But that was one of the complaints that I saw early on with that M1 as well. But I'm kind of pumped about this Acer. I'm gonna be honest with you, Steve. I'm gonna be coming home tomorrow, and I want to see if I can't get mine put together before you do.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's
Here's
what
one for
we
you.
should do. We should do a live and do like a Acer P20 assembly race, and then see who can do it first. But then you're disqualified if it doesn't work when you get done. You're disqualified.
No, all right. Well, we'll have to talk.
Oh man.
So here's Norma's asking, new to X-Tool, purchased the X-Tool D1 Pro 5 watt. Am I limited to what I can do versus a 10 watt? I'm going to say, no, you're not limited in what you can do. It's more so the time it's going to take. Generally, you're still going to be able to cut the same, but you may have to take more passes. Now, as you get into thicker material, you may be a little limited there, but this is one thing that I caution people at that are jumping from like the 5 and 10 watts up to the 20 and the 40. The more power doesn't necessarily equate to being able to cut thicker material. That's still dependent on your focus, your focal depth of that laser. So it's just going to allow you to generally do what you can now, do faster with maybe a slight increase in capability of cutting thicker material. Now, there's been some of the 40 watt X-Tool modules posted out there, and people are cutting 2x4s, and there's a little bit of a back and forth with some of the video makers and even X-Tool themselves, whether that's wise or practical or not. While yes, it can do it, it's fairly inconsistent in how it does it without creating a fire, where it does it and actually leaves an edge that's worthy of saying it was cut versus just, I could do the same thing with a blowtorch. So you're going to have a finite thickness based on your focal length and the focal point, how long it stays in focus. Because these lasers, when they're focused, it's not just a straight beam that's infinitely in focus. It's kind of like an hourglass. It comes into a point and it's highly focused, but then it starts diverging again and going back out. And when it does that, you really lose your effective cutting ability at that point. So your 5 watt versus your 10, you're going to be able to do mostly the same. It's just going to take you longer to do it. So the higher power is more about speed than capabilities.
Yeah, like I said, I agree with you on that 100%. And it's like me and Steve have talked about before. And if you're interested in focus, if you're new to lasers, you don't understand focus, go to my videos. There is one out there that I recently done to where I literally break out the crayons and explain how focus works, why it's important, and how to kind of manipulate it to your advantage if you're trying to make a more black engrave, or if you're trying to punch really thick material. But like Steve said, when that laser beam gets out of focus, the wider the area that beam is contacting, the more potential for fire. Because when that beam is completely focused, it more or less just destroys the material, vaporizes it. But as you get further from that point of focus, there it just starts putting heat onto the material, and that's why you have more burning and more charring and stuff the further out of focus you get. But yeah, when we get those new machines in, we can really do some focus demonstration with the 24 watt. Norbert's talking about, no, Mark, main concern is
Here's the
cleaning the
original.
fan and the heat sink. Yeah.
So yeah, Mark had asked, "What's the best way to clean the laser head?" And so the optics and the whatnot. That's where you've got the residue. The alcohol is good, but then compressed air is best for cleaning off the actual electronics. And so clean off the fan with that. You can actually take the cover off your module and such to get a little more access to that. But I would definitely blow it more in the direction that the air is supposed to go through it, just to kind of continue to keep moving it through and get in there, get that dust off of there. And then I wouldn't spray it down with anything though, but I would just use the air to clean it off. That should get anything off the fan and the electronics on the inside.
Little tip, just in case. This is not always the case, but I would take either a Q-tip that you've already used or something. A piece of material, something, and kind of keep that fan from spinning when you're blowing it out. Some fans, and I don't know if the X-Tool or any of the lasers are that way, but when you hit them with compressed air, they'll spin really, really fast. There is a possibility with certain motors that when the power is not activated to them and they spin really fast, they create electricity, and that could backfeed into your board and cause some damage. So I always take a Q-tip or toothpick or something and stick in the fan to hold it stationary while I blow it out, and then once I blow it out, I remove the stick. I would prefer that you use something soft, like maybe a Q-tip or a toothpick. I wouldn't use a screwdriver or a knife or anything like that might damage the blades. But that's I do that with computers and anything that has a cooling fan, just in case, because you never know when you could spin that thing fast enough to charge that board. My opinion.
Yeah, no, and that's a good tip as well. It's the same thing when moving around your module and your gantry by hand. You're actually can create current and backfeed into the controller board for your steppers as well. So,
Somebody's asking for a link to the group. I'm going to try to grab that
put it in
right
there.
quick. Oh, did you?
I already got that.
See, Steve, you're faster. You're faster than me with those two screens.
I still had it copied and pasted.
Let's see. Oh, that's Norbert talking to Mark. As much fuse as possible. That's Norbert commenting back to Mark. Yeah, ventilation, guys. Ventilation is good for two things: smoke, fumes, dust. The cleaner the air is inside your enclosure, the cleaner your electronics, your laser, all your stuff is going to stay. I saw some pictures of people saying they just got through cleaning their machine on Facebook groups, and looking at the Q-tips and the rags and everything. They probably need to start cleaning their machine maybe like 3 times as frequent as what they did, because man, I would be just, oof. It was a lot of junk come off of that laser. Good evening there, Johnny, from Western Colorado.
Yeah, a lot of people ask how often they should do it, and it's really going to be dependent on how much you use your machine, what type of material you're running through your machine, because I've had some where I've had to clean it after 1 or 2 runs of a material, whether it's the honeycomb bed underneath, whether it's the mirrors and such just from smoke. It's really dependent. It's just you gotta learn and watch your machine, look for that buildup, look for signs. So like the honeycomb bed, the more you use it, the more some of that vaporized material gets stuck on the honeycomb bed, and then that can cause little flare-ups and such. It's just something you kind of get used to looking at and saying, yep, I'm seeing these flare-ups, or I'm seeing a lot of kind of sticky gunk on there. That's one reason I don't like MDF is it's so full of glue and resins that get blasted through and then collects on your honeycomb bed that it's messy. And so that's why I don't cut it a lot anymore.
Yeah. Let's see, who was it? I think Resin was saying that she don't mind XCS, but she feels Lightburn gives her much more flexibility and customization, and I would agree with that. Guys, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I've only used XCS to update firmware. I've never burned anything using XCS. I use it to update firmware. That's it. That's the only reason I keep it around.
Mm-hmm.
Lightburn is the way. So we got Mark. I cut a lot of 1/9, 1/9 of an inch, maybe. What is that?
She's clarified it later. Eighth inch MDF on Glowforge, and yeah, I used to run a lot of 1/8 inch on my CO2 as well, until it was easier. Well, at the time, it was almost as cheap for me to get 1/8 inch Baltic birch, and it was just cleaner all over. It's a nice material because it's very consistent and it actually engraves very well. But as far as cutting, you get so much debris on that, and it does take it with all the resin and the glues in there. And then you also need to be careful. It's less common now, but a lot of MDF can contain formaldehyde, which isn't great to burn as well. So I just try to avoid it. It's kind of messy. Where I do like it is when you get into creating. So I have a lot of friends who get into the tabletop gaming, and if they want some custom objects created, custom scenery and such, MDF, 1/8 inch MDF is a great way to do that. But like I say, it tends to be messy stuff, and it doesn't smell the greatest when burned and such. So you can do it, but I try to avoid it. I haven't really tried cutting it much with the diode lasers, just because it does tend to take a little more power with that all that the resin and the glues in it.
Yeah, I actually did a video on that too the other day with some MDF. And while I was getting the MDF, I picked up some birch because my buddy Steve over there, well, quit looking at me. It's not going to focus. It's not going to focus. Anyway, my buddy Steve is always talking about this birch plywood. I couldn't find any Baltic birch where I was at, but this stuff is hard, and I'm not a weak guy, but you can't hardly bend this stuff. So I'm thinking it's going to be kind of hard to cut. It's a 1/4 inch material. I bought a 2x4 sheet of it, cut it up into some squares just to do some testing with for you guys with different machines as they come in. I also bought a sheet of the MDF and been doing some testing with it. So I've got a video out there of testing on 1/4 inch MDF with the X tool, and it cuts really well with the 20 watt. So if that's what you're using there, who was that was asking about the MDF? Oily, if that's what you're using is MDF. Like I said, I do have some 1/4 inch MDF that I did videos on that should be in my content. 1/4 inch birch,
this is
comp. Okay.
This is
this
is 1/2 inch stuff. So that's the stuff. It's kind of the cabinet grade. You get the thicker veneer layer on the outer edges, and very consistent interior stuff.
Let me try that, Steve. Oh, look, Steve, yeah. I did it.
There, almost. There you go.
There you go, right there.
So yeah, that looks more like also the big box store where they have kind of maybe the core is more of an MDF. Let's see if I can do this here. This being 1/4 inch stuff, you get those 5 plies there. But the big benefit to this is it's the same material all the way through it, and you get that thicker veneer material. So this is something that you're going to typically find at. It generally tends to be special order at your big box stores. I know up here in the Midwest, Menards stocks some of it, but it's something you go to more of a hardwood dealer and ask for cabinet grade. The issue with this is since the pandemic and with the stuff going on over in Eastern Europe, Russia is a big supplier of Baltic birch, and so it's gone through the roof. I used to get my as a I was getting dealer pricing on it because I was using so much of it, and they would deliver it to me. I used to be able to get a 5 foot by 5 foot sheet of 8-inch Baltic birch for about $8. Now it is 3 times that. So it's gone up really, really high in the past few years. So it's good stuff. I still have a lot because I had ordered a lot early 2020, and just things slowed down on some of the stuff I was doing with it. But so I'll have to reevaluate some things when I get to reordering that again. But it's I like it. It's good stuff. It's very consistent. The other thing about it, and I'm not going to have a good example here, is when they patch it. When you see some of the voids in plywood at, say, Menards and Lowe's and Home Depot and such, they will often put like a wood filler in there. That's like a putty that dries. That stuff is torture to try to cut through often. Whereas with these, they'll actually cut out a football-shaped patch and they'll glue it in. And so you have more of a consistent, you might have a small glue line, but you don't have a big chunk that is just solid resin or glue. So that's just some of the stuff where, depending on what you get, sometimes it's worth it to pay for a little higher quality to have more consistency, because it's nothing worse than having a big job and you find a big chunk in the middle that there was a patch in it that you couldn't see because it's in the center, and nothing you can do about it.
Well, this is what I primarily use. Anybody that watches the channel knows this is the cheapest stuff you can buy. 1/4-inch Luan. I buy it right here in town. It's not, let me see if I can do it again, Steve. It's nothing fancy. It's got the thin layers on the outside, the thicker layer on the inside. This stuff does cut really good. And for most of the stuff that I do, it works well. Not saying it's the best wood, but I get this stuff for $22 for a 4x8 sheet. I rip it into these 16 by 16s and wind up with a whole pile of wood for $22. So that brings my price to about $1.41 for a 16 by 16. And pretty much anything I make out of this stuff, I'm going to get more than $1.41 for it. So it works out pretty good. But for some projects, of course, I use milled lumber or thicker lumber. But this stuff right here, for just like all those little boxes you see behind me over there, all of those guys are made out of this cheap plywood, and I have good luck with it.
Now this is some 1/4-inch sanded plywood from Home Depot. If I can get it to focus out of there, you see it's got that kind of thick inner core, and this is the stuff I'm kind of talking about. If you can see it on there, they obviously tried to fill some imperfections with this stuff.
It's like some Bondo.
It's like that wood putty Bondo-ish stuff. That being said, I've had decent success cutting this with the 20-watt machines and such. It is very, very smoky though. So that's, again, you got to find what's available to you and what works for you, and it's got to be within the price point of what works for your projects and such. But if I could use more of my 1/4-inch Baltic birch over this, I would, just for its consistency and lack of that kind of putty filler on it.
All right. The 5mm plywood actually has an MDF core. Doesn't curl as bad as the standard plywood. I could see that. MDF does lay flat. I'll give it that. Now, if you ever get it wet, you're in trouble. But MDF does lay flat. It doesn't have to worry. MDF, you don't have to worry about it getting, moisture going to make it twist or anything like that either, because it's just pieces of sawdust glued together. So they're not working together to cause that warpage.
Yeah, just the trade-off is that MDF is tougher to cut. But
anyone use Revolutionary Ply? Never heard of that.
So my local Lowe's closed a couple of years ago, and we've got Home Depot, Menards, Fleet Farm, other places and then some hardwood dealers. So I don't shop at Lowe's as much as I used to for wood. So I don't know how that would compare, but when you're looking at some of those 5mm ones, it tends to have that MDF core. tends to possibly be like your Luan grade. Some have had, like Clack has had good luck with some stuff he's locally sourcing, but I've seen some up here where people just struggle with it as well. So,
I mean, occasionally I get, I'd have to dig through this pile right here. Occasionally, like this piece right here, this is some of the patchwork you're talking about right here. That's just a big gob of, of putty. But what I did is I made sure that that big gob of putty was not in the part that I was using for this project. So, there are things that you have to take into consideration when using this stuff. I got another piece right here. There's another little knot right there. But again, I put it outside my work area in my scrap so that I didn't have to contend with it. So there's a trade-off. I get cheap material, and it is cheap. It works. But occasionally I may have a 16 by 16 that just doesn't work for me. I have to throw it away. Not often. Usually I'll throw that over here to the side and just cut smaller stuff out of it so that it's not in my way. But I'm not afraid to try any kind of wood, guys. I've got species of wood in here that you wouldn't think you could cut that actually cut really well. I do a lot of milling. And there's a video going to be coming out in a day or two. I'm working on my wife's Valentine's gift. And hang on, if I can get it. And this is poplar that I milled. This was milled right here by the Clack Shack. This is poplar that was allowed to age and sit for a while. And you can see that kind of gray stain to it. That is caused by a fungus that gets inside the log with the help of bugs, and it gives it that nice gray color. Now this hasn't been sanded yet, so I planed it and then engraved it really deep and put it over here. But there's a video going to be coming out involving that here shortly. It's my wife's Valentine's gift that she requested. Thanks,
yeah, as you do more with this, it can pay to look into some of your more traditional woodworking tools. Getting a planer and being able to take things such as, this is a cedar fence picket that, if you pick it up from, even Home Depot or wherever, it's going to be really rough cut and possibly weathered a little bit, but you run through a planer a few times, you get a fairly consistent thickness out of it, you get a nice smooth surface for the most part. It's a nice way to get inexpensive, solid wood, and you've got your knots and whatnot to deal with in this. So you got to work around those with the laser sometimes, but it can definitely open up some options for you in being able to mill this down to the thickness you want and get a clean surface to work with.
See, yeah, this has got dust all over it, but there's some more poplar, as you can see by the green wood. And if you can see that black line that's in there. But like I said, this stuff, I go get the logs, put them up by the mill, let them age for a little while, and then I mill them up, dry the lumber, bring it in here, and make stuff out of it. So the cabinet shops will sell you wood.
Yeah, it depends on the cabinet shop. Sometimes they will, if you give them some heads up and they're going to be getting an order in and you can come pick it up right away, they'll be happy to, throw some on there for you and either help their quantity order or add on to it. Although the past couple of years has been kind of up and down as far as supply, so they might be able to, like, hey, sorry, we're having a hard time getting it ourselves. The other thing they might be able to do is they're probably going to have a lot of cutoffs, and they have to pay to get rid of that stuff. So if, it doesn't hurt to reach out to them and just say, hey, could I, would you be able to help me source some of this? Or do you have smaller cutoffs that I can just take off your hands? They may be more than happy to let you grab some of that because they're paying to get rid of it. And if you're going to take part of their pile away without making a mess, they'll probably be happy to let you do that. So, just be courteous and ask them what they might be willing to do for you. But I would imagine, I've talked to a few of them and they're hit or miss on what they think. But generally, if you're willing to solve a problem for them or not create a hassle for them, they're happy to do it. And perhaps you've got some services you can offer them as far as engraving.
Sorry, got to blow this thing off.
That's not loud at all.
Another thing, guys,
Um,
I'm going to throw this out there from a milling perspective. If you looking around in your area, Facebook, marketplace, because a lot of these guys that have sawmills, you'll see them in marketplace trying to sell a little lumber to buy gas money with. Speak from experience. This is a piece of scrap off of my mill, and this is cedar. All right, and this literally I throw away and burn like truckloads of this stuff when I mill it. So if you'll find somebody in your area, and like I said, the best place to find them is in marketplace groups. You can get these, like I can take this piece here. This one hasn't been planed. You can see it's still got the chatter marks from the saw on it. But I can plane this out and, do whatever with it, make whatever I need to out of it. But a lot of guys that have sawmills, like I said, what they think is scrap, y'all could take, run it through a planer, or if you don't have a planer, just sand it. I mean, you're going to be there for a minute with a sander, but you could sand it down, make something cool out of it. If you've watched my videos, I'm sure you see all the wood propped up in here, and all that comes off of my sawmill. So hit those Facebook marketplace groups, and just search for sawmilled lumber, and just message them and be like, hey, do you have any scrap wood that you could either sell me or I could come get out of your way? Because I have to burn this stuff and it piles up, and I have people come through and pick up pieces of wood regularly. And I'm guessing Steve's got something off of a sawmill there. He's working to get the lenses.
I have
I know what you're
I have a
after.
number. Yeah, I have a number of friends who do have sawmills, so I pay them for their nice wood, but they usually have a big scrap pile. They're like, yeah, just take whatever you want. But as far as replacement lenses, so it most of the and this is actually beyond X tool. So a lot of lasers will have this little cover, this cover lens that you see here. So this is on the bottom of the laser, and it just screws off. And depending on your model, it may be just kind of siliconed in here, or it may have a brass ring that needs to unscrew. Now they often glue those in with a little bit of like CA glue or something. So letting them soak in a little bit of acetone or something will loosen them up. But you want to get that out of there. And then this is just the part that you got to replace. It's just a little clear piece of glass lens. And I have a friend who has been making these. He sells them in a pack where he also includes these O-rings that allow you to help. There you go. Allow you to it'll just press on there so you don't have to screw it back in or glue it back in. And then he also includes these little 3D printed spades that I actually printed them out for him that allows you to get that brass ring out. I haven't gotten him to set it up on Etsy yet. He's been doing them just through some of the sale groups on Facebook, basically through PayPal and such. So I'll tell you what, I will try to copy his information into our Facebook group for those that are looking for them. He does a pretty good job about shipping out, I think, maybe 8 at a time.
Yeah, this is the one he sent. Yeah, this is the one that I got from him, Steve. And it's got, I don't know if you can see the glass, but there's over here he's got like 4 on each side, and then a couple of the different size O-rings, and then of course there's that custom Steve tool there. So, but yeah, these I got him to send me these just because, like I said, guys, I make money with my machines. And like Steve said, there's a lot of these other machines use the same glass. And so these are just spares. Luckily, I haven't had to use them, but I keep them in my little toolbox over here just in case I do have one go down and I've got spares. So if you're like me and you make money with your machine, it's better to have, something this small on hand than have to, during a breakdown, you're trying to get something overnighted or shipped to you to where you can get a project done. But Steve, you said you're gonna be able to put his information in there, or email address or something?
Yeah, I'll try to drop the information he has on those in our Facebook group, so that if people are looking for those, it's a source that, I mean, I know him. He's a good friend of mine, so I trust sending people to him, and they're inexpensive. They'll help you keep your machine running without spending a lot and waiting for individual parts from some of the retailers. And I've noticed the same screw-on cover on like my, I think it was the Atom Stack 20 watt machine,
Sure.
the smaller 10 watt, like the Jakota and the Lane Lux machines. They're on a number of them. So if you've got that brass screw on cap, you can basically measure the diameter of it and see if it's going to be pretty close to these. So.
All right. What type of glasses? We've had that comment before. We've had that. Of course, I recommend these. Oh, hello, Fluffy. Excuse me, guys.
Let's see here. Let me get this focused. Oh, come on. All right. That's not going to work for me, is it? Because it's too translucent.
Oh, you kind of got it right there.
There. Can't. Okay. So these are Free Mascot. It's the same brand that are sitting on there on Clack's head as well. These are just a different style. And what you'll notice, if I can get it to focus on the right side this time, is there is actually a rating on there. It's really hard to see, but it's etched on there, and it says it's 190 to 500, 800 to 1100 nanometer, and an OD of 6+. And so that's what you're looking for, is that it lines up with the wavelength of your laser. And then you're also looking for, I think for diodes, they recommend minimum of 5. So 6+, these are good. The reason I got this style is they do fit fairly well over my prescription glasses. They're well rated. They have that rating right on there, as compared to the funky thing that I got with the latest laser.
Oh, those are some freebies.
Yeah. These legit hurt because they have so many sharp edges, and it's just a colored glass. While that does block some of the light, there isn't a specific rating. And so if you don't have anything else, okay, it's a layer of protection, but these actually have been rated and tested. And so, yeah, like I say, these do fit over my glasses pretty well. There's just, like, if I was to turn to the side, there's a little bit that it could get in from the backside, but they do really well, allowing me to still wear my glasses.
Yeah, me and Steve wear the same type, the same rating glasses. The only difference is he has prescription lenses that he wears under his, and I do not. So this is the same. These are the same glasses, just the different version, I guess you could say. And I was trying to find a link to them, if I can.
I probably got
I know
that
I've
too.
got it. Yeah, I've got it on my page, but there they are for y'all. OD6. There they are.
Race.
But there should be links. Like I said, you can go on to the group. I think we shared it in the group too the other day. Okay, come here. Nobody wants to see that end of the cat. Somebody had asked about, after cleaning your laser, do you reinstall the orange shield or leave it off?
So I'm this is a use at your own risk and discretion question. The
Yes.
orange shield that is on there is purely to provide a layer of protection from the laser beam. It actually does more to inhibit the work of your laser, but it's there for your safety. So you're removing it knowing that you are taking more added risk to yourself and your eyes than anyone else. If you have it in a proper enclosure, if you are controlling your workspace, and if you're wearing these, there is no reason you need to have that on there, as it's just redundant at that point. But you do that at your own risk, making sure that you're doing whatever you need to make sure you're replacing that protection. That being said, those covers themselves aren't 100% because they don't seal it in there. There's still areas that beam can bounce out. So even with that on, you should still be looking at, laser safety glasses to protect it at your eye, to make sure that it covers as much area as possible, including on the sides. Generally on mine, I'll leave it on for any video work for reviews and such for initial, but afterwards, I generally take it off. I make sure I'm using my glasses, and it tends to work better, and it's one less hassle for me. So
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, it is definitely one of those things that you have to make a decision to do it, and you are increasing your risk. Is it needed? It depends. Like Steve said, it's one more layer. So if you have it on, you have your laser in an enclosure, and you have your glasses on, you kind of have redundancy in the fact that it's not going to hurt your eyes. Me personally, my X tool does not have it on it because I found that it got in the way a lot. I trimmed it down, cut a quarter of an inch off the bottom of it. That helped, but it still kind of got in my way. I didn't like what it did with the crosshair laser, and so I wound up taking mine off. But that's, like I said, that is totally something that you need to make a conscious decision to do on your own, and I will not advise you one way or the other. Little lawyer thing there. But
yeah, so this is I think the Type 5, and then yours are the Type 6, I think, or 4. There's
that's what
there's a few different styles.
Jim says that yours are style 5 and mine are style 4, and I
There you
can't
go.
dispute that. But I'm assuming Jim's looking at them. Oh,
Yeah,
but yeah, if you got to wear if you've got to wear prescriptions, you're going to need the one Steve has. Yeah, we've actually run way over what we normally do, but it's just there's people in here, and I hate to cut everybody off, and I really don't have anything else to do but go to sleep and get ready for work tomorrow. And this cat's really enjoying the attention, so we'll put her down, see if she'll stay down this time.
Yeah, on this laser shield on the 8, it's similar from what I can tell from the photos. It's similar to the Atom Stack ones, and they are darker, and it limits it because it's usually just up front, which is really frustrating because I like to do a lot of my framing with the laser on, at just like 1%, really see the extents of that. But when you have some of these shields on that really do their job well, it's hard to see that laser. So it'll be interesting to see how that is on that machine.
Yeah, it has a little window from what I've seen of the pictures, almost identical to what the Comgrow 20 watt has, which the glass fell out of that window here a while back accidentally. I may or may not have took my thumb and pressed it till it popped out. But anyway, I got rid of it because I couldn't see. I'm like you, I like to use the dot to frame, and I couldn't see the dot through it. So I just pressed and it came out, and now I can see the dot. So, and the 8er may get modified.
Oops, got the
Richard
wrong
said
one
he's
there.
got to get ready for
So
work.
Deborah's
Night
asking
shifter.
is I'm assuming this is an X Tool 10 watt, a year old. Is it worth $400? I would say if
Depends.
it's in good shape, as long as it has been abused and it's been cleaned well, I would think a 10 watt at $400 is probably the upper limit of what I'd pay, because while you might not be able to get the equivalent X tool for that, you can get a lot of brand new 10 watts for 400 or less right now. So,
Well, the 10 watt with rotary right now on Amazon $6.99.
yeah.
So
Now, is that the standard rotary, I assume?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, X2
So,
D
yeah.
watt D1 10 watt with a rotary,
Well,
$6.99.
and you can get the 5 watt Pro for 400 some. So, if you're wanting that and then you want to upgrade to a larger module down the road, that gets you a brand new machine with the Pro that has limit switches and other sensors added to it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I believe if it's a year old, I mean, unless you really know the person and trust the person you're buying it from, I'd be careful because it may be that it's not in really good shape and they're going to get you.
I'm going to say no to this for a couple reasons. While we're seeing quote unquote 40 watt plus diode lasers, you're still talking about multiple diode emitters to create that 40 watts of power. So it's not a single beam being created by a single device. And there's going to be limitations to that, and there's going to be issues with that. They're also on the module. So these modules are getting big, they're getting heavy. That's going to really limit your ability to move that head around at any speed as well. Also, there are certain things just due to physics because of the wavelength. It still isn't going to be able to touch clear acrylic or translucent acrylic or certain colors. And that's nothing they can overcome with sheer power. It's a physics of wavelengths interacting with material. So no, I don't think it's going to become dinosaurs. I think as you see, maybe if they can increase the actual individual output power of a diode, where they're not having to combine so many beams together, that's definitely going to put pressure on the low end spectrum of CO2 lasers. But I don't think they're ever going to replace them.
Yeah, another limitation that you didn't really mention, but I know you have in the past because that's where I learned it from, is with CO2 machines, you have the capability of changing out the lenses and having a longer focal length, which would give you drastically more penetration. And with the current configuration of diode lasers, you cannot change out the focal lens. It's made into the machine, and that you get what you get, and that's all you get. But with the CO2s, you can change the lenses to adjust focus to give you a longer depth of cut and so forth. Learned that from
and
you,
that's
Steve.
that's yeah. There you go.
See, I'm picking up on some of this CO2 nerd stuff you got going. I pay attention. Now, I'll tell you what would be really awesome if they would come out with like a almost like a revolving lens like they have on microscopes for a laser,
Yeah.
to where you could just twist it and turn it from one setting to the other. That would be awesome.
Well, they have that, and what it's called is a CNC machine with an automatic tool changer.
Yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, Jim's
There you
mentioning
go,
there
those
the
CNCs.
X-Tool 10 watt on Amazon is $550 right now. So, a used one at $400. Again, it's going to depend on what accessories come with it, the condition of it. It's not, to me, that's not enough of a discount off of them. I know that I've seen on my local Craigslist Facebook place, there's some people who try to sell their equipment and they're like, oh, I've got X amount invested in it. It's only a year old. Well, technology changes fast on these things, as we've seen over the past year or so. So it's hard to really recoup. I find myself on used tools, if I'm lucky to get, if I can get 50% of the new value, I feel pretty lucky on it, unless it's just something crazy unique that people are searching for. Used market is still hit or miss.
Yeah, I've seen the complaint. I think he's talking about the H-er being mirrored. You can't see the beam at all. But like I said, that's not going to be a deal breaker for me. I promise you, I can figure out proper application of acetone or something. I'm sure that little piece of glass will let go if it becomes a problem. Becomes too much of a problem, there may be some modifications made to that diode itself. But I'm just looking forward to trying the thing out. I'll let y'all know what I think about it, because I'll be burning up some stuff with it. Here we go.
So, you want to take this one first, or?
You got more experience with the CO2s, so.
Okay.
Well,
so for me,
fiber's in there too.
Right. So, it's so the questions I would ask a person are, do you want something plug and play, easy to use, that you can put away? Then I'm going to lean them more towards a diode. If they're talking about certain materials such as acrylic or doing production and needing some speed and power, and they're willing to invest a little bit more, might point them towards CO2. If they're getting into metal, obviously that's where you're really going to be looking at the fiber. The diodes do have their smaller IR modules, and I think that's great if you're someone who's doing smaller projects such as engraving smaller jewelry and such. But when you're getting into larger items that are a few inches square, it can do it, but it's going to be super slow, and that's where the fiber laser is going to be just giving you some awesome speed in that. So those are kind of just the basic points of what I'd be looking for. A lot of it also is going to come down to what's the environment they're working in, what's the material they're working with, and what's their willingness to tinker and adjust and maintain, all those things are going to have a factor into not only what type of laser, but maybe which specific laser within those they're willing to go to. So,
Yep, I agree with you on that. And another big consideration that if you're doing it as a hobby, then of course, just whatever you want to spend and how much you're willing to spend and what you want to do it for. But from a business standpoint, if you're not going to be able to turn out the work, you've really got to consider that starting out, especially before you go jumping on one of these fibers, because the cheapest fiber I have seen is that $1,200 atom stack or maybe the $1,000 laser pecker, and those are very, very limited in what they can do. So, of course, I'm a big advocate of if you just want it for a toy, then, get what you can get. But if you're trying to make money with this machine, you need to, one, make sure that you have enough market that you can make up for the purchase and, regain your expenses. That's why I can't get out of the diodes. I mean, I stay so busy with them that I can't justify spending $5,000-$6,000 on a machine when I'm making enough money for what I'm trying to do with the diodes. Because if I was full time and did this every day, it might be a different thing. But just weekend warrior, afternoons after work, I'm more than happy. Woo.
yeah. Yeah, you get into the real fiber lasers, you're jumping up in price right away. I think you're talking maybe for the least expensive one from like Ohmtech and Monport, you're talking 25, 28 if I remember right, just for their basic entry, fiber lasers, and then up from there. So it's definitely something where you're going to want to have either, hey, this is my hobby, it's fun, and I'm going to throw the money at it, which I have. When people talk about just a hobby, they're like, how can you afford that? And I just go back to them and ask, well, what's your hobby? And I'm like, oh, I play golf. And I'm like, okay, what are your green fees? What does your set of clubs cost? What are your shoes and everything? You're going to have your hobby. You're going to figure out what's comfortable for you to put into it. So I've got friends in the RC hobby that have tens of thousands of dollars into a single airplane, and it could crash. I mean, gravity still works the same on these planes, no matter how much money you spend on them. And I've seen some of those just crash and go up in smoke. I'm not willing to spend that much on a turbine powered jet and have it just go toast like that. But I've got some airplanes that are a few $1,000s in value of equipment and such that I put up in the air, and I could just crash them. So, if it's your hobby, that's kind of your point. If it's for business, you're going to have to justify that expense, and can you recoup that? So,
yeah. Well, that's kind of like me. I mean, I got a 50 horsepower tractor sitting back there. But I use it for a lot of things, and I use it with the sawmill. I use it just for maintaining my property. And other guys, maybe if you live in a subdivision and you don't have to have a 50 horsepower tractor, and you want to take that money and buy yourself a nice fiber laser with the money, then hey, go for it. But if you're doing it for a business decision, you need to make sure you've got the work for it. Because I've had several people ask me about doing fiber work, specifically on some Second Amendment related stuff that would require me to have a fiber. And I'd love to get into it. I'd love to do it. But I don't have that kind of time, money, or a place for it right now. What you laughing about me for, Steve?
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at comments. These hobbies are cheap compared to many things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
I wouldn't be burning epoxy from what I've heard. That's a rumor, but I've heard epoxy is not one of those things you want to breathe.
Yeah, it's so there are a few different epoxies, but resin in general doesn't cut well with a laser, especially if it's like fiberglass impregnated resin. Just forget about it. That's where, depending on what you're trying to do, there might be a better tool with it. From like a CNC engraving type thing to, more of a, I don't know. Epoxy is just one of those things that it's kind of usually the last thing short of planing, sanding, and polishing. It's not something I like to try to do anything with afterwards.
I can tell you from experience, because I tried to engrave something that I had coated with epoxy one time, and it was a thin layer of epoxy. Uh, it engraved the wood nicely underneath the epoxy, but it was clear epoxy, and so it didn't. It was a neat effect, but it did not touch the epoxy. It went straight down below it and burned the wood, and yeah, it didn't really have the desired look when I got through that I wanted. But that was one time I tried it, and from now on, I engrave, then I epoxy. So just my advice on that one. Feel free to try it. It was fun to try, but it didn't work. All right, so I guess we've stayed over about 40 minutes over what we normally do. So rather than
Yeah.
just dragging everybody out here, it looks like the questions are slowing down. So we'll go ahead and give y'all guys like a minute or two warning here. Throw those out there. If you haven't already, you still got that link for the group? Never mind, I've got it right here. We'll go ahead and shameless plug our group here. Steve and I have kind of decided, and we have created a group for those that attend the lives and have questions or just want to hang out. Share some of your work, share some of your projects. We've had a couple people that built a enclosure off of Steve's design that shared those. A couple of folks that have done some of my projects that have shared with us. Because it is one of those things that I have to prevent on my Facebook page, letting other people post to it, because of obviously you guys know what kind of stuff will end up on there from whatever Russian website decides to post. We had to come up with a group for you guys to be able to share in, and so we did that, and that's what that link right there is for. If you want to go join that group, folks will approve you, get you in there, and if you have questions, comments, concerns, if you have any content recommendations, that's always something that me and Steve like to hear from you guys and know what it is that you want us to do. And then if enough people are on the same page, I'll, especially with me, I'll go to Home Depot and grab something, and we'll try it out, and Steve will as well. But we do both have the Acer 20 watt. Is it the 20 watt P? Is that what it's called? 20 watt or Pro?
P20.
Or 20 watt P?
The
P20.
P20 Plus, I believe, is what's coming.
Yeah, both of us should have one being delivered tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll be text messaging, or we may be like linked up talking to each other when we get those things. But we'll be running those things through the paces and seeing what kind of a machine it is. But like I said, if you haven't already, subscribe to Steve, myself. Go to our Facebook page, hit the like button on that. Well, we do a lot of stuff through Facebook as well. Sending messages to me, and I'm sure Steve's the same way. It's a lot easier for you to message me on Messenger or post in the community group, as opposed to trying to comment on a video, because sometimes those comments on the videos, way YouTube works, they just get lost and I never see them. So, but
that being said, it is always appreciated when people put in comments on videos, especially the ones that, even if it's just like, hey, enjoyed it, thanks, keep it up. That does a lot, both for YouTube saying people like it, but also for us. Sometimes I know on some of my videos, I randomly just get people who want to just nitpick things. And, as much as we're both good at ignoring that, it still just eggs you like, okay, well, why did I spend time on this video when I'm just getting people complaining about it? So always appreciated with the comments there. But yeah, if you have specific questions and such, using that group or our individual Facebook pages to reach out to us works really well for us. And, I know my goal in this is kind of just to do what we're doing here, build a community, share information. Creating the videos, working in the shop keeps me from just sitting munching popcorn, watching some latest Netflix thing that, is just going to numb my brain and make me fat from popcorn and whatever. So, that kind of keeps me going, is being able to just share some of this fun hobby with people. So as long as it continues to be interactive and fun with people, I'm going to keep doing it as well. So,
yeah. Yeah, we do appreciate y'all guys. Like I said, if you're watching, hit the like, smash the like, you leave some comments. The more traction that our stuff gets, the more traction our channels get. Of course, we start getting the better toys to try out and do new things for you guys. I have a lot of people asking me about machines that I don't have, and I can't afford to run out and buy every machine that's made so that I can answer questions or do testing or come up with things for them. So having the content does actually have an effect on some of these companies wanting us to try to use their equipment and show you guys, and so that comes out. The folks that are going to end up benefiting from it are going to be you guys, the public, not necessarily anybody specific. But I have content with several different machines, and so does Steve, and that's kind of what keeps the wheels turning. So I appreciate you guys. I think this was a record-setting live for Steve. I'm proud of that one, and I appreciate everybody spreading the word. Like I said, hey, we don't mind if you talk about us in the Facebook groups and tell people to come watch us. We do not mind that at all. We encourage it, actually. Like I said, it's the whole meaning of the term community, guys. Share them off on Facebook group. Yeah, Norbert, like I said, guys, that's what that page is for. That's for everybody to share, exchange ideas. Some of these guys like Norbert and Jack, like I said, a lot of those guys are just as knowledgeable as me and Steve, if not more in some topics. And we're all willing to help and work together. So until next time, I guess that's going to be it there. Somebody does want to know if you're going to try to put the camera on a K40. Do you have a K40? I don't have a K. I have a M40.
Well, that's the same thing. But
yeah, I don't. It's the workspace isn't big enough to me for a camera.
Yeah, I think I'll as far as the CO2 machines, I'll be looking at the bigger one if I put a camera on it. But we'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was great seeing everybody, and we'll catch you next week. If not, some surprise Acer stuff going on midweek here.
Yeah, that is a possibility for there to be an Acer video coming out. So be safe, guys. Have a good day.